If I'm doing my job right, we have a great relationship, and in many cases I might know more about my client than almost anyone in their life. And in many meetings, obviously we go in with an agenda. It's very common where I'll start off the question is there any problems you're trying to solve right now? In some cases that catches people off guard because they're expecting everything to just be about finance and their portfolio. But what I've found over time is trying to solve people's most important problems are probably where the most value is added. And at the level of clients we're typically dealing with, money is usually not one of their top 3 or 4 or 5 problems. It's something else.
We're here with Mike Chudd. Mike is a private wealth advisor with UBS here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome to the Attorneys on Accident podcast with your host, Joe Wirth and Ash Blackburn.
Thank you.
We're really excited to have you on. We don't say that to everyone. Sometimes we just do one really. No, we're really excited to have you on and hear all of the things that, all the wisdom that you get to share with us having to do with money, with finances. We want to talk about Las Vegas and some of the trends, where it's going. So let's just dive right in and get your story. How did you get here?
So quick story, I grew up in the Philadelphia area, and early on I realized I didn't think that was the place for me. So I started to kind of explore what other areas of the country might be more desirable to live. And Vegas popped up on the map as, it was sunny and, a lot of cool things going on in Vegas at the time. So I applied to UNLV. My journey started there, walked on to the UNLV football program and kind of took a shot at it. And shortly after I wound up getting a scholarship. And throughout my process there, obviously my biggest fear was, I need to get a job.
Yeah.
Like, I like it here. I want to stay here. My parents weren't in a position to financially keep supporting me, so I knew I had to figure it out. So my junior year, I started interning in the industry that I'm in now. And basically, I figured that was a 2-year interview process to figure out how to get a job.
Did you come here for sports, or did you know that you wanted to be in finance and you were headed in that direction?
I was a financial services major, so I had that in my background, but ultimately it was more about lifestyle and wanting to move, out west.
Okay, gotcha.
We were golfing, and you mentioned just offhandedly, they're like, I played football for UNLV, and I'm like, my finance guy is... he's a triple.
I didn't look like it then, and I don't look like it now.
But you did the loneliest job in the world, right? You were a kicker?
I was a place kicker.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
What was that experience like, and have you brought the kind of elements of sports into the finance world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kicker, it's, you're doing something that's very specific. It's one movement that, in many cases, you might have one opportunity a game.
Yeah.
It's not like other players where, they may pass to you 10 times or 50 plays. It's 1, 2 that are extremely impactful, and you just have to be ready. So it's about being prepared, discipline, and many of those things, characteristics that apply to business.
Right.
And then take it one step further, being a teammate. We have a large team now with 25 people. Many of the things I bring to the team now were things I learned as an athlete, with accountability and camaraderie and culture. That translates extremely well, whether it's business or sports.
Absolutely. And so what position are you in now in your team in business?
So I'm one of the founders of our team. We've got 4 partners on our team. 2 of us were the lead founders. And, we've just continued to grow, as the environment has been right for us.
Okay. And tell us about you. So you're with UBS. When people start thinking, hey, maybe I need a financial advisor, they get to that point where they have a little bit of money, they've saved some money. Does it matter? Should they be thinking about the brokerage firm that they're tied to, or is it more about the individual? Help us give some context and frame that for us.
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, let's start with the firm. You need to have a firm that has the right resources and the right tools that are appropriate for you at that stage of life. Larger firms like ours, we offer everything from mortgages to investment banking to investments and private equity and things like that. Smaller firms may focus just on investing, as an example. So I think the firm is important, but then most importantly, who are you working with at the firm? That can make a huge impact. A misconception a lot of people have is that all advisors are the same, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Just
Yeah.
like saying all athletes are the same or all lawyers are the same. You know, there are extreme differences based on where you specialize, where you're comfortable, things like that.
I was one of those people that thought most financial advisors were the same, that, you know, somebody put in my head that, you know, they're salesmen, right? And they sell you these products, they get their commissions. And so I built up a healthy amount of skepticism and kind of just keep it at arm's length. I had a couple before I met you, but by the time I met you, I'd had some bad relationships, right? So I was coming into it even more wary and wanted to do my due diligence. And I just want to take a quick
Is
moment.
that what you call it? It felt like an
Due
interrogation.
diligence.
Well, that's one thing that attracted me, and I'm sure attracts other individuals to you, and where they're trusting their, you know, their livelihood with you, is you were willing to sit with me until, you know, you'd answered all of my questions, right? And that took 2 or 3 different rounds. You came to my office, I went to your office. Is that something that you feel like you developed as a strength over time, or is that something that UBS has taught you? Or
Look, our goal is to create long-term, you know, lifelong relationships. So, look, if you made a decision in the first meeting or two, in some cases you might not know enough to determine if we're actually the right fit for you. So I think actually taking your time and having, you know, 2, maybe 3 meetings to determine, is this the person you're hiring really the right fit for me? Because in the beginning, it's like dating. Everyone's excited. You know, you're going to see the best of that person in the beginning, but ultimately it's a matter of, do I really fit in your book of business and the way you run your business as a good client? Will I be a good client 3 years, 5 years from now? Because ultimately you don't want to switch. So in some cases, you're trying to find someone that you will grow into as the client, but you're also trying to make sure you don't outgrow your advisor either too quickly.
Yeah. What kind of things should people be looking for if they fit a financial advisor? What advice would you give?
I think the first thing that I would always tell someone is make sure you're comfortable. You know, some advisors can be very intimidating, and people are afraid to ask questions. They think that, you know, it's a dumb question. So I think, 1, you have to be comfortable. 2, I think a great question is, do you have a lot of other clients that look like me? On paper, in many other ways. Like, am I your largest client? Am I your smallest client? Where do I fit in? And that's ultimately a good indication of whether that person's the right fit for you or not. And then I think it's really important to, you know, share some stories. You know, ask how you run your business, what do meetings look like, you know, things like that. So you get a real good feeling for, is this what I'm looking for? Is there value to be added here? Or is this going to be a transactional relationship?
Yeah.
Where I feel like a number or a commodity.
I remember when we met, you were, you know, you didn't say it outright, but you implied that you're probably like my least wealthy client. And I was like, okay, this is the guy for me. I want the like smallest house in the most, you know, the best neighborhood, right? Have all the value go up. No, but that was something that I was graduating, right? And so speak to, you know, it's just like as you climb the ladder, as you get better and hopefully make more money, right? You might not stick with your buddy from college who went on to work at Fidelity or whatever.
No, and that's a challenge many people have. I mean, the best analogy I'll throw out there is you start a business and, you know, you may have 10 employees when you start, and you hire a CFO, and then that business grows to 100 employees. Is that CFO still the right person? Then your business grows to 10,000 employees. Does that person still have the right skill set to manage the organization as they grow? And I think as an individual, I think that translates equally to say, you know, if my net worth is doubled or tripled or whatever the number is, am I with somebody that has the skill set to manage my life experiences, my complications? Not everyone does. So sometimes you do have to reposition that person in your life or in your company and be a little bit selfish to say, you know, I've outgrown this person and I need to find someone who can help me based on where I am, not where I was.
And what's your advice? Because that wasn't easy for me to break that relationship. Is it just money ball? Just go in there, say, hey, you're being traded. Here's your paycheck.
I think any decision, shouldn't be spontaneous. It should be a matter of comparing what am I getting versus what can I get. And, you know, the best indication of what you're going to get, look back. What is your relationship been like? What are your meetings like? What kind of questions are they asking? What kinds of things are they making me think about? And determine do you need more? Or is it just fine? So it can't just be based on personality. It has to be skills and all those things. And once you determine I need more, I think at that point you cut the cord and go in a different direction.
What I really appreciated about, when I am and have been looking for the right fit myself, and Joe was like, this is your guy. He is going to give you advice, not just about your finances, but about the entire picture of how you're spending your money and how we're moving forward in the business. And very specifically, when Joe was thinking about breaking off from his partnership and starting Blackburn Wirth, he came to you and had that conversation. I was so fortunate to meet you when we were at the Knights game and kind of realize how holistic you approach things and how rational you kind of approach things, what I think Joe really needed in that time. Can you kind of speak to why that's important to you?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm doing my job right, we have a great relationship, and in many cases, I might know more about my client than almost anyone in their life. And in many meetings, obviously, we go in with an agenda, but it's very common where I'll start off the question is there any problems you're trying to solve right now? In some cases, that catches people off guard because they're expecting everything to just be about finance and their portfolio. But what I've found over time is trying to solve people's most important problems are probably where the most value is added. And at the level of clients we're typically dealing with, money is usually not one of their top 3 or 4 or 5 problems. It's something else. And in our conversation, I sensed that that the partnership was growing apart, and he needed to have a conversation about it and decide if that was the direction he wanted to go. In some cases, I felt like he was kind of lowering his own bar and kind of matching some behaviors that were going on instead of trying to drive through them. And I knew that wasn't him. He's such a growth mindset guy. But when I saw him coming in for a meeting in his gym clothes at 10 a.m., I'm like, that's not the Joe Wirth I know.
You just got shamed.
I just got called out. Not anymore. Now
Maybe Lululemon was sponsoring you, but
now I'm in by 9:30. Come on. So, but no, and I really appreciated, the fact that because you've got such a front row seat to all these clients, right? And most of them have money, and I think that you would be quick to agree that just because they have more money doesn't mean the problems just shift, right? They still have problems.
Absolutely.
It's just different, right? We all want to think money's going to solve all of our problems.
the problems become more complicated.
How so?
I mean, the simple, people talk about rich people problems. When you have no money, your life is hard. But the more money you get, the more complicated things become. And you've got to make more decisions. And the impact of those decisions can become even greater, the consequences of them. I mean, it's everything from thinking of an estate plan, making sure your kids are raised well, knowing that most people don't want to have trust fund babies. So it's not about writing the documents; it's about intentionally having conversations with your kids, and not the day before they go to college or the day they graduate.
Right.
It's many years in advance. And many of our clients who have a lot of money now, they didn't have money their whole lives. Some did, but in many cases it was self-made. So their parents weren't having these intentional conversations with them, trying to teach them about money. So in many people's cases, when they have kids, that's their number one priority. I want to make sure that they turn out well. And money can complicate that. There's a lot of things that get thrown at kids with money. Kids can lose their work ethic. They can feel entitled. And it's really important to make sure you're intentionally thinking about that. So it gets complicated.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Las Vegas, this migration from California, not just California, but Vegas has been growing at a ridiculous rate for years and years, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down. It doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. What have you noticed from where you're sitting, your vantage point, in terms of the wealth that started to come to Vegas and the type of people that are moving to Las Vegas?
So when I moved here in 1991, I think Vegas was known as a value, whether it was the buffets or the reasonably priced housing. At the time, you can buy a nice house relative to many other places.
$100,000.
Yeah, in the country for a reasonable amount of money. So that was the lure, and the people that it was attracting were people that were retiring. In many cases from the Midwest, people that were looking for a change, and all of a sudden, it started to evolve where Vegas started to change its mantra and go more upscale, more lifestyle oriented. And then fast forward now, sports, luxury properties, luxury real estate, amazing golf courses. I think that we're not a value anymore. And hence that's hitting some of the marketing and some of the social media out there that Vegas has become really expensive. But on the real estate side, I mean, it's gotten crazy. I mean, we've got clients that have 50, 75, $100 million homes in Vegas. That never happened in the past. So I think we're getting many more, more than just millionaires, but billionaires that are like, wow, Vegas has a lot to offer, besides being just tax friendly and a nice place to live.
Okay, and then talk about the professional sports teams. We now have the Summit Club, right, which is a Discovery Group property. What have you noticed in terms of people coming here to avoid maybe, their state taxes, the convenience of flying internationally everywhere? I mean, are you bullish on Vegas in the sense that you don't see it slowing down? What are your thoughts as far as the next 5, 10, 15 years?
I am excited about what Vegas has in the future. I mean, I remember when I came here, UNLV was a basketball town, and as I travel quite a bit now, when people find out that I'm from Las Vegas, I mean, one of the first questions people typically ask is, were you around during the Tarkanian era? Mm-hmm. And, that was 30 plus years ago, and people still remember that like it was yesterday. And now we've evolved. I mean, people love the enthusiasm we've brought to sports. Yeah. Our hockey team is exciting. The stadium has such energy. It's created a community. Our kids are now growing up with professional sports, and having grown up in Philadelphia and having the Eagles and the Flyers and all that stuff. I mean, that's what kids talked about when they went to school. They were wearing their favorite players' jerseys and all that stuff. And my kids didn't have that growing up here, and it's nice that kids have that now. And I think that creates a really exciting thing to be a part of. And you look at the amount of kids that are playing youth hockey and things like that. I mean, who would have ever thought? So I think it's pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it is becoming more community. It's something we focus on with our firm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Trying to do things to not just have it feel like, that city where you go home, garages go down, and you don't know your neighbors and interact, right? But you really have to work at it.
Yeah, well, in a town that's growing so exponentially, and you're not one of the people living in a $50 million home, like how do you compete in a city like Vegas that is growing in this direction?
It's tough. There's no question. I mean, it in some cases comes down to, when you want to buy your first home, instead of thinking it's just going to be you may have to be a little creative. Maybe you have a roommate and you have them split the cost. So simple things like that can help you get started in building some equity and trying to enjoy the thought of planting some roots and making Vegas permanent.
Yeah, that's a hot topic right now. It seems like a lot of financial advisors are suggesting that you do not buy a home in today's economy. Do you agree with that? What side of that are you on?
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on homes, and I'm sympathetic to young people. If I were graduating high school or college and saw how much it costs for just a starter home now, I don't know how you couldn't be discouraged and just kind of go, well, that's not for me, and I'll just rent.
Right. Look, it is a math problem when we think about it. How much you have to compare what does it cost to rent versus what does it cost to buy, and I think you certainly start there. And I think you have to determine how long do you want to stay here. If your goals may be changing and you're up in the air, I think renting is the right solution for you. But if you really want to start a family and see the benefits of getting into the community, I think home ownership can be great. I mean, it's harder to meet people when you're on the transient side of things, where you're renting, and in many cases you're renting for 1 year, and then you got to go find a new place and then find new neighbors and new friends. So there's pros and cons, but it definitely starts with a math problem.
Yeah. Well, this is what I love about you. You always go back to the holistic part of the decision, right? What's your end goal? What are you trying to decide? Where did you get that enthusiasm for making sure that somebody's not just making a financial decision when they come to you?
So when I started in the business, it was 1995. It was before the internet started to get popular. So I had to make a living only giving investment advice. I mean, people couldn't find it elsewhere. That was the majority of the time and energy we spent. Then, as the internet became more popular and you started to see the clients having the ability to do things on their own, you kind of had to look at yourself in the mirror in this business and say, hey, I need to reinvent myself. I need to add value beyond just investing.
Right. Now that there's informational asymmetry had broken down, you could go online, you could see what the different percentages and commissions, right?
Yeah.
what they're maybe making on these insurance
People
policies.
used to call us at the time for quotes because they simply wanted to know what was XYZ trading at. Whereas
Yeah.
now, I mean, everyone can figure that out on their own, so our conversations are more meaningful. So in that reinvention process, what I would do is ask clients, how can I add value? And in many cases, they would say, hey, look, this is new for me also. I'm just trying to figure this out. Help me think ahead. I want you to think of what other people in my situation have done and help me grow and evolve rather than make mistakes on my own. I'd rather learn from other people's mistakes. So the holistic part of it became the new way of being an advisor, where managing the money was happening behind the scenes. And obviously, if you're good at it, they appreciate it and they're very aware of it, but they still want more. And that's where the holistic part of it is they want to be taken care of in every aspect of their life, whether it's family, finance, planning, things like that.
Well, I'm so glad that you did change. I'm so glad that you did realize, like, I've got to add value in a different way, because one of the ways that you added value for me personally, and then, as a somebody downstream in my pyramid scheme, also benefited her, was you introduced this idea of a life coach, a business coach. And we've had Christina Gomez, our shared life business coach, on this podcast. And I mentioned on that the fact that you were the first person that kind of injected this idea of, oh yeah, like, you don't, everyone should have one if you can, right?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want that person on your team? And we were having, Starbucks, we were sharing a drink at Starbucks, and you mentioned it off the cuff, and I remember leaving that conversation just going, he was very comfortable with saying, yeah, of course I do. It makes me a better person, a better leader, and a better husband, all the betters. And then we had some follow-up conversations where I wanted to know more. And then the next thing you know, I've got that life coach that
Right.
we share, and he's been instrumental as being part of the team. So, when you talk about adding value, is that thrilling for you? Is that something that is the best part of your job, or is that just kind of who you are? I mean, is that something that you've just grown into? Help us understand a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll start with the coaching part. Again, growing up as an athlete, you learn that there's lots of coaches that help you evolve.
Yeah.
You get to the college level, and all of a sudden you have a nutrition coach. You might have a social media coach. You've got a strength coach. You've got somebody who is helping you at every stage of the way, and you see the benefits of that. So when I got into the business side of things, I realized that there must be something equivalent to that where someone can help you along the way. So obviously the types of coaches that I've used along the way have changed from in the beginning, where I needed process and accountability, to now it's fine-tuning and helping in many other ways of helping understand people better and things like that. So it evolves, but I think that's a huge part of learning to grow and develop and trying to stay ahead of the curve to be able to help people based on the stage of life that they're in. And one of the most motivating things for me on a daily basis is making an impact in people's lives.
Yeah.
And again, making rich people richer, that's awesome, and that's what I get paid to do. But the real, I would say, moments that you go home and you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, the moments
are when you're making an impact in someone's life. You're helping them make decisions that are really important to them, and helping them learn from other people.
As a coach yourself, what are you looking at to best advise somebody, both financially but also in the holistic approach that you take?
I think first it's learning to become a really good listener, and not going in with a preconceived answer to what you think the problem is. So it's listening, and then it's trying to ask good questions. I read a lot of books on the types of questions that you can ask, and I study that, and I try to think about it, because in many cases you don't know what that question is going to be ahead of the meeting or when you're in the middle of the meeting. So you kind of have to pull it out to determine what is the most appropriate way to kind of start peeling that onion and figure out what is going on, or get to the root of the issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. Just some little quote that was floating, but I've said it to my kids before when they just get lazy, right? And I ask them a question, or we're having a conversation, and I'm trying to teach them that a lot of people stop too soon. They just say, "How was your day?" it's lazy, right? And
You
it's
give
not,
a generic answer and you're going to have
How
a
was your-
generic conversation.
Yeah, how was your weekend? And when I come into the office, one of our employees, Bianca, she's the first person I see, and you read the books and the podcast, and I'm like, I need to actually go better or do better than just how was your weekend, right? And then lo and behold, the magic happens where I don't just say how was your weekend and great. I said, tell me one interesting thing you did. Just one interesting thing. No, nothing. How was yours? And she's trying to push it on me. And next thing I know, she's telling me about her trip to LA and how she went to this library, and I'm writing down notes, and now I'm going to go to this library, and turns out we're both passionate about reading and books. So, when you say that, it's easy to go, oh yeah, I listen and then I ask good questions, but I just wanted to take a moment to be like, that is so critical,
Right.
Yeah.
because you asked me really good questions. You asked Ash really good questions, and that's what builds trust. Right, and then you can know, okay, well, how can I best help this person? What do they need? What are their problems? Right?
And it all starts with just being prepared. I mean, I've said
Yeah.
to my kids at times, if they're going to someone's house, I'm like, I want you to engage with the parents. I want you to think of one or two questions you could ask that are not generic. And I think one of the things that has made me successful is, since I was a kid, I was always comfortable around adults, successful adults. They didn't intimidate me. I enjoyed it. There were many times where my parents would laugh because they would see me go to my friend's house, and I spent all the time with the parents and barely talked to my friend. And I loved that. And I think that was one of the things that helped me get comfortable at a young age in this business. At 21 years old, most advisors are not successful because they're a little bit intimidated.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt, but you had no idea you were tapping into the power of, you were hanging out with these people that were
Right.
going to elevate you,
Yeah.
right?
I
You
had
were
no
you were the
intention.
average of all these adults now.
Yeah, I had
Well,
no
that's-
intention. I just enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's just good life advice, right? That it makes you memorable to people that can open doors for you and give you opportunity,
Right.
And
Absolutely.
set you apart from the rest.
Yeah, and they kind of make fun of that, right? In like movies and TV, when they're just like, no one's ever talked to me like that. When they say something ridiculous.
Right.
But how many times have you heard some story or anecdote where they got the job or they landed the deal because they just said something bold, or they asked a question that kind of just threw them off? One of the things that I remember you throwing at me, where I kind of was like, oh, I like this guy, was I was talking about the second home that I had purchased in Utah.
I remember.
And you start asking me specifics about it, and I'm trying to feign some humility, but ultimately you're like, you challenged me, and you kind of came hard at me, like, why do you want to put more money in this house than your house in Las Vegas? And things that nobody had asked me, and I'm like, I need this. I need somebody. I don't need somebody to just go, oh, brilliant, you're so smart. Everything you're saying, yeah, put your money there. I was going to hire someone that was going to challenge me and make me a better person.
And it goes back to me asking good questions. A lot of our clients have multiple homes, and they all start off very excited, thinking that their life is going to change and they're going to be there all the time. And then as time goes on, I ask the follow-up questions. Are you there as much as you thought you would be? Are you using it the way you had intended?
How's the maintenance bills?
Yeah. Or in many cases, it's not about cost. It's more, are you enjoying it? Or is your
Is it
spouse...
worth the value?
Is
Yeah.
your spouse annoyed that you only want to go to one place now because
Yeah.
you're so committed?
Do you feel like you have to go to that place? Is it speaking
Right.
to you in a way where it's irritating, like, oh, I have to use it because I've spent so much money on it?
And yet, in your case, what jumped out to me was the place you spend 95% of your time and energy, you didn't put the energy or the money into it compared to the house you're going to spend 5% of your life at. And I thought that was the appropriate question to kind of challenge you before you got too far into it, if
Yeah.
that was the right move or not.
Luckily, Joe meets anybody on the street and is like, "You got to go to my house in
Right.
Utah."
I will get value. Yeah.
He will. Yeah.
I'll give you guys the address. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to.
But I'll be honest, and just sitting here listening and hearing all of this makes me feel better about it. But that conversation that he told me about, where he got really excited and wanted to do something a little bit impulsive, I would say, right? How hard you hit back on him. And it helped him make the decision, right? That he knew it was actually the decision that he wanted to do. But it makes me nervous because it makes me feel like there's still some things I want to do. I'm not ready to hear, nope, you shouldn't do that yet. What counsel would you give me and others like me that don't feel ready to have a financial advisor?
I think everybody, financial advisor or not, I think everybody needs someone in their life that's going to be honest with them and challenge them on what they're thinking. If you surround yourself with a bunch of yes men and yes women, I think you're doing yourself a disservice in business or personally.
Right.
The value of people being honest with you can open your eyes. You may not agree with them. And what I've learned in this business and in life is we can disagree and still be friends.
Yeah.
Disagreements are not fights. And obviously that applies to business, marriage, parenting, and all those things. It's okay to disagree.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think to some degree in this conversation, you did disagree, but it led you to be more convicted about the decision that you were making.
Yeah.
And it was a big financial decision. And ultimately, I think it served you well, and you're more intentional about using the house.
Yeah, we gave more thought to what is this going to be. I don't want to just do this because this is what you're supposed to do if you have a little bit of money. It's like, oh, it's time to get a second home. So we really gave it, led to conversations with my wife and what is this about and how do we want to spend our time there. And so that's what you want. And that we talk about money, and I think it's really easy, and you're probably going to be better at articulating this, but whenever we're talking about money, it's so easy to just kind of be like, well, these decisions don't matter that much, and we probably shouldn't be thinking about it too much anyways, because money is kind of this evil topic or bad topic sometimes, right? So
Many people have been raised to think that.
Right, and so I certainly deal with that, but how do you help people realize that these decisions that they make with the money that they work hard and earn and save is going to affect bloodlines and generations, because that house has, right? Like our kids are up in college there. We get to spend time with them. We get to do family reunions. And so it changes not just, your bank account, but like your life and the quality of your life.
It goes back to the moments over minutes. If every time you're there, you're having a moment that's special and you're creating these traditions and these things that you wouldn't have done if you were renting a place, maybe those moments are more important than counting how many minutes you're there or how many days you're there. And it's that mindset that can make it extremely beneficial to doing something like that. But the key is look, the thought of money being evil, the money itself isn't evil. It's how you think about money that potentially can be the evil thing. If you obsess over it and that becomes your only identity, is the fact that you're rich or you can buy things, then it is a problem.
Yeah. Why do you think people think money is evil or it's a taboo topic?
I think since we were kids, people were always taught you don't talk about money, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex. So I think that it is a taboo subject for that reason, and I think that it probably starts there.
Yeah. How do you overcome that? Because I imagine you have to deal with that a lot. I know for certain, sitting down with you, I was very uncomfortable, mainly because I do have, I don't know, a fear of money, right? I grew up in not the best scenario, right? So I didn't have money. I'm a self-made person. Mm-hmm. And so there's almost wanting to be humble about money.
Absolutely.
There's the security.
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, right? Like, so it makes me, no, I don't like it.
Some of our wealthiest clients, you wouldn't know it. They're very humble and they're very intelligent, but they choose to spend their money differently. And then there's others that enjoy the nice things.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong.
Right.
Just don't change who you are just because you have money.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also, and I don't think that this is a good thing, but there's like a scarcity to, I just want to see this number in my bank account and have that security that I didn't necessarily have before. What would you say about getting over that fear? Because I know that that's something that you too.
Is that a problem? I mean, is that something that you try to help people with?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, many people who didn't grow up around money, that is a common mentality. If you look across the industry, those that didn't grow up with money oftentimes invest their money much more conservatively than those that grew up around it and know that investing works. So I would challenge you to say and to think about money sitting in the bank is unproductive. How can I make it more productive? I want it to grow for me. And part of it is maybe starting slow and gaining some confidence. Maybe
seeing that it works.
Yeah, doing a little more homework maybe than the average person, so that you understand, what will these investments do if I invest in this versus that. But the thought of being afraid to invest and keeping it unproductive for a long period of time could cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. One of the other things that you told me that intimidated me was get a spreadsheet out and track everything that you're spending.
I hate that.
And again, for somebody that didn't grow up with money, there's the freedom of being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. How do you get over that fear?
I apologize if I intimidated
You're
you
good.
with
It's
the
good.
S word.
It's good.
But spreadsheets definitely intimidate a lot of people. But I think there's an accountability when you start making money, that you have to be careful that you don't just frivolously spend it, because you can very easily. It's easy to pull out that credit card when you know you can pay it off, and you start buying things and spending it differently. And I believe if you want to be successful over time, just like you manage a business, you do have to be accountable and think about it and track it. Maybe not to the penny or the dollar by any means, but at least on a monthly basis, you should be aware of where your money's going and being a good steward of that capital to make good decisions.
Absolutely.
Because if you create bad habits early on, it's hard to reel them back in. It's kind of like weight. Most people don't get heavy overnight. It's a process of overeating on a daily basis.
A couple pounds a year.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you look over time and you're like, wow, how'd this happen to me? I think spending is the same way.
Right.
Absolutely.
Just like no one wants to think of a diet. Well, what about just thinking about a lifestyle? I think money is the same way. Think about it as a lifestyle. Be aware
analogy.
of what you're spending.
Absolutely.
What do you think the three most important decisions we make are?
I think number one is probably who you marry. I think that has a huge impact on your life.
I'd strike out the probably. I think.
Yeah,
Just
Who you-
period.
absolutely.
Who you
Period.
spend your entire life
Yeah.
with, yes.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
I would say second, the career you choose. And to your point, it's not just about making money. It's are you doing meaningful work? And then I'd say the third thing, back to where we started off, is where do you live? I think those three things are really important. Lifestyle, what options are available to you, and then if I'll throw one more in there.
Bonus.
And I think it's health.
Okay.
I think you have
yeah.
a very different life if you're healthy versus unhealthy.
Yeah. What's the point of making all the money if you're not healthy?
Right.
Yeah, and obviously some people don't. There's some things get thrown at you that you certainly don't have a choice, but you have a will as to how you go about fighting it. But I think just being active can create a much more exciting life. So those are my four things that I think make the biggest impact.
Yeah. Going back to career and purpose, Joe presented an interesting dilemma for you of having to go backwards in some ways when he started a new firm. What advice did you give him about taking that step backwards?
Yeah, Joe was very proud that the money was going in one direction for quite a while. He was making deposits.
You're welcome.
Thank you to our managing attorney.
And he had not anticipated the money ever coming out for many, many years to come. And
I was happy to exploit that as long as I could.
exactly. And overall, it's a good principle to live by.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation we had is, what are you going to do with the money that's coming out, and is it productive? And in this case, we talked about him investing in himself and taking a chance on taking the firm in a new direction. And I thought the return on that money would be much better than what he was expecting. Instead of worrying about earning 5%, 10%, 20%, take the bet on yourself.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the mindset I tried to get him to shift and say, okay, if you have to tighten your belt a little bit, adjust your spending accordingly, but stop feeling guilty about taking it from your left pocket to your right pocket. I mean, you are investing in a business. You're not just throwing it away.
Yeah, and one of the things that you hit pretty hard was this idea of stay in your lane. You know the law. You know personal injury. It's easy to get seduced and kind of sucked into fantasy world of like, oh, I'll go do this, or
That's
maybe
interesting
I could do that.
because you were thinking about
Yeah, I kind of was like
if I
open
didn't
to-
do this,
yeah,
what else would I do?
Right, maybe a little bit of fear, and I wasn't really looking at what I was afraid of, but you helped me realize, like, let's actually, you can create this within what you're already an expert at, right? And you don't have to run away from the field or anything like that.
Right.
So
it's hard enough to be successful in one industry, let alone try to do it in a second or a third.
But do you see that with a lot of your wealthy clients where they either get bored or they think they need a new adventure, and then it's actually not the right thing for them to try to go and reinvent themselves?
Yeah.
Look, just like making it as a professional athlete, it's a cool dream and something a lot of people think about, but so few people actually make it to that level.
Right.
I think the thought of the average person crushing it in one business in a really good way and then doing it a second time or a third time in some cases is a fantasy. Yes, there are some unicorns out there that have done it.
That get a lot of media coverage and attention, right?
Right. But on average, I've seen that when people deviate from what made them successful,
Interesting.
it's really hard.
I love this
Interesting,
because I do
yeah.
feel like when we first started the firm, so many opportunities, and we were in different scenarios, right? So this is my first time being a partner, and I realized like once you graduate to this level, now there are so many opportunities coming at me, and I'm that kind of person that like likes to walk through every door.
And what do you always say? You're like I can make money doing anything,
right? And so Joe, I mean, kind of had whiplash where I was like, let's do this and let's do this and ooh, let's do this. And I'm really glad that in working with my life coach kind of over the last year and a half, there was this humbling experience that I had of like, my life is kind of nice, you know, like I love what I do. I like the people that I do it with. And I'm not sure what was kind of leading the charge of me. Like, I don't really want to do this anymore, but I came back to, no, you've built this thing. Why would you leave it? But why do you have the opinion of like, stay in your lane, what you've been doing?
Because I think that is a little bit counter to what everybody says, which is the chase your dreams, follow your intuition. So there's probably there's a happy medium, but I want to hear more about this idea that you're like, what you've seen personally.
I mean, you definitely hear that from a young age, chase your dreams. But I think you also have to pair that with your ability. I mean, look at myself. I'm 5'9". I can't dunk a basketball. If my dream was
you weren't a center, you were a kicker.
Exactly. But if my dream was to play basketball, but I'm just not good enough or talented enough, I can't dunk, move on. Find something that you are good at, maybe equally passionate about, but your talent and your passion match up. I think that's really important. And I think you have to, once you have money and you have some success, you do get a lot of opportunities thrown at you. And I remind people that this two-letter word is really good. Learn to say no. And you don't have to say no, and here's why. Sometimes it's okay to say no. It's not right for me. It's a distraction rather than being additive to my life.
Yeah, no equivocation necessary. Just no.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast with Cody Sanchez, who deals in finance, and she was basically saying like, you don't have to make the thing that you're passionate about your revenue stream, which I thought was great advice because I feel like I love podcasting and I feel artistic, and so there's a part of me that's like, I want to go create stuff instead of be a lawyer. It's so boring. But she also said like, find a game that you play really well. Like we're all playing games, right? And so find a game that you play really well. And again, like I know I play this game very well.
Yeah, and I know I manipulate people really well. So I just keep playing this game.
That is not what I was saying. No, the systems of it, right? So the systems of the law and kind of the 20 years that I've put into it. Me and Joe were talking about, we're thinking about expanding into Utah, and we almost forget like the value of having done this for 20 years, and then that knowledge of what to do with every case that comes in front of us, and how difficult it would be to start a firm from scratch.
That was the challenge I had when I got into this business. I had all the energy in the world, but I had no experience. Luckily, I was smart enough to join a team, so the team had experience.
Right.
But as a young person in any industry, experience matters.
Yeah.
And it's hard to cheat to get there. Like you actually have to put time in to become good at whatever your craft is.
Yeah, we'd love to put in the cheat code and skip those levels, go to the end, win.
The concept of put it in the microwave and it'll be ready in 30 seconds doesn't exist in most careers.
I feel like that's something that's happening in society right now of like, be an entrepreneur, go at it alone, start the business. And there is this value that's lost of learning from mentorship and learning from the people that have been in the game already.
I think COVID ruined that for a lot of people also that felt like the convenience of working from home outweighed the inconvenience of being in the office.
Right.
Someone who...
Speak to that.
For many years now, I've been on the other end of that where I am mentoring a lot of younger people, whether it's in the office or clients' kids that are coming in. And it's really important to spend time with people. In some cases, just casual conversations that happen rather than things that are scheduled.
And there's no adequate replacement for that because it's spontaneous, it's organic.
Yeah.
You might walk by someone's desk and next thing you know, you're in a conversation where you're able to lead them and mentor them, where if they're at home in their pajamas logged in, you're not going to have those random chance occurrences, right? And we have so many of those conversations at the pony walls and in the offices where it's just kind of this organism and people can move and flow, get up, go stretch your legs, talk. So it's funny. You don't hear about that. What you hear is, oh, it's so awesome. I get if a conference call cancels, I got to go up by the pool for an hour. And it sounds great. I'm nodding along, but I'm forgetting until you're saying it that you lose so much of that experience.
Culture, that you gain being around the right people, the things you're learning intentionally and unintentionally from watching people do things right, do things wrong. Powerful.
Yeah.
Can't duplicate that.
We've replaced wanting efficiency or needing connection, I guess, with our drive for efficiency.
Right.
And that's a real problem. And I honestly, I think growing up, I kind of fell victim to wanting to achieve, and put all distractions, especially including people, to the side. And what I've gained from Joe being partners with him is the need for connection and the need for relationships and the need for marketing. And it sounds like you too kind of grew up, making friends with your parents or your friend's parents.
At some point he went from a distraction to a friend.
Yeah, he did. It's true.
Well said. Well put.
Yeah, but where did you? I mean, it sounds like fundamentally you grew up having that
I'm a
understanding
people
as well.
person.
Yeah.
I get energy out of being around people, so for me, it's always been easy. And from a young age, I saw the benefits of having mentors around me, whether it was my neighbor across the street who was 5 or 6 years older than me, or the adults that I was around. I really enjoyed that, and being alone to me was like I was in the penalty box. So even as a kid, I'd get on my bike and I'd go find people. I didn't enjoy being alone.
I mean, you knew that at a young age.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pushing Remy so much to just enjoy people and love people, because I think that it's hard, right? I'm learning it as an adult, and it is a very hard, awkward lesson to learn as an adult, like learning a language, that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of young people, I want listeners to come away with you're pragmatic, if you're nothing else, right? You're very rational, you're very pragmatic. I think that suits your profession. What is some general advice, regardless of how much money is in their bank account, that you would give to anyone and everyone, saying, here's Mike's rules of finance?
I would start with this. There's basically 3 things you can do with money. You can spend it, you can invest it, or you can give it away. And I think how you think about each one of those layers will determine the outcome of what life potentially looks like. So when you think about the spending part of it, I am a big believer, live within your means. Don't overdo it, and make sure that you're thinking about the future. So I think that's number 1. I think when it comes to investing, I think do your homework. Don't sit on the sidelines just because you haven't invested in the past. If you're lucky enough to have money, start to understand it, respect it, and learn to make good decisions, or partner with someone to help you make good decisions, because that compounding is a powerful tool. And if you allow your money to grow and keep compounding, you're going to have a lot more. And then potentially adjust your life accordingly. And then I'd say the third is the giving part of it. I think it is important to give back. When you have no money, maybe you give time. When you get to our phase where you do have money and less time, maybe it is about finding a cause. In a perfect world, you commit some time and you commit some money towards causes that are important to you.
Selfishly, why is giving important? I mean, is it for your own personal psychology and mental well-being? Like if you were to tell somebody like, no, you want to do this, and they're like, well, no, I don't have any money to give, and I don't have time, I'm too busy. Like, what would you tell them to be like, well, no, this is like a human fundamental principle, not just for one person, for everyone?
I would say for me, it's about once you try it and you see how it impacts your heart and the people around you, I think it gets a little bit addicting. And I believe in the pay it forward type of mentality. So, for me, I've gotten a lot of just personal gain out of doing it. And that's not what I expected going in. There's a couple of things that I do each year. And I get really excited to, tell my wife and tell my kids like how the experience went. And my kids remind me like, Dad, it sounds like you're getting as much out of this as the people that you're giving to. And I think it's contagious and it makes you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life's not just about buying shiny objects and more TVs. There's a time and a place for some of that, but I think if you are working towards helping others and helping them grow, and you're kind of helping your community, it's meaningful.
There's a financial return rate too, I think, because we've noticed like the more open and willing that we are to give, the more we're getting back in some way.
It shows your heart,
right?
And I think oftentimes people, when they're looking to hire someone or even be friends with them, you kind of look at where are they spending their time and their money. And there's some amazing people in our community that have given thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions back into the community. Are they benefiting from a business perspective? Maybe, but I don't think that's their intent. I think they're enjoying the fact that they're helping, in many cases, children or communities, and giving back. And I don't think there's anything bad if it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've heard the statistic of 80 grand is kind of that on the bell curve. Like once you're making 80 grand, it used to, inflation's changed that. But, anything beyond that is not going to make you any happier, right? Once your basic needs are met, with inflation, would you put that up at like 150 grand now or 200,000? I mean, what, in your mind, if there's somebody who's listening and they're kind of like, well, listen, my goal isn't to, live in the fanciest country club. I don't need this, and I'm not going to chase that. They understand and appreciate, like, they want to zen out more and appreciate life. I certainly have that pool all the time. Do you feel like there is a number, though, where it's like, listen, this is the number you probably should try to at least work toward, because then once you have that, you can start saving and thinking about.
So I think of it a little bit differently.
Okay.
First, I've obviously studied and watched happiness for my whole career, because initially you go in with the thought and think that the more money you have, the happier you will be. And I started to study it and then read about it and listen to podcasts. And I think at this point I've come to the conclusion, 2 things make you happy. I'd say it's meaningful relationships and meaningful work. If you can accomplish those 2 things and you have money, I think you can be really, really happy. Money can make you happier in many cases, because it does give you the ability to have experiences.
Convenience, experience.
Yeah, luxury, things like that. But if you take away the meaningful work and the meaningful relationships and just have a pile of money, I don't think you're generally going to be very happy. And I've seen that.
And you see that where people, either they come in a bunch of money or they've made a bunch of money. How do you help them with the meaningful work once they've retired or once they're shifting into a new career? How do you help them with that?
It's different for each person. It could be giving back. It could be mentoring people. It doesn't necessarily mean having a day job. But, my wife, as an example, she just goes up to the club in our neighborhood and helps out the tennis coach with the little kids on Saturday mornings. To her, that's meaningful. She feels really good about it. She's obviously not making any money or having an intention, but she loves seeing these kids be kids and get the exercise and do that. So I think it's finding something, whatever work is, change your definition of work, meaning you're trying to earn money and just do something maybe on a regular basis. And I think that could be a version of work.
Okay. Some rapid fire kind of, final questions here. Just going to throw them at you.
Yeah.
We're going to test your skills. What do you see as opportunities that are going to open up? Obviously, AI is the obvious one. Beyond AI, what other opportunities, industries, would you say, okay, if I'm mentoring younger people and they're looking at what career paths to go down or where to live, what to do, give us kind of your
I'll start with the career path. I think the obvious thing is make sure that AI isn't going to replace you in 2 years.
Yeah.
There are certainly a lot of jobs that are being replaced or automated. So I think it's important to think about that and be ahead of that curve.
Do you have any ideas about what industries are going to be most impacted by AI?
I think everything will be impacted. The difference is, will you lose your job or will you become more efficient? I think there are many people that will use AI as a tool and become much more efficient, get a lot more done, have better quality of work. Things that used to take an hour might take you 10 minutes, so you can become more productive. But I think others that are not reinventing themselves will become dumber and will not be able to be in the workforce because they won't know how to solve problems or do some of those things. So I think that's really important. I always warn people, be careful chasing fads. Every AI company is not going to be a home run.
Right.
Just like the auto industry, just like the internet, there are many companies that don't succeed. So I think you have to be careful not to just chase the dream and find some get-rich type of company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Another question is, my grandma had an amazing home in La Jolla in the hills, and you could see SeaWorld, you could see the ocean. It was incredible, and basically we joked that like everybody on the street and then surrounding mansions, she had this older home, just was waiting for her to pass so they could bulldoze it and buy this prime lot, right? I remember reading in high school something about, one of these get rich, help yourself out books, self-help book, where it said, this guy, he went to all the people in a really nice house, and he just as a kid knocked doors and say, what do you do for a living? And so he did his own research, right? Did his own homework.
Right.
So I actually did that. Like I worked up the
you
nerve.
did.
Of course, you're shocked, right? I worked up the nerve. It still was terrifying. Like I'm like, am I going to do this? But I went and knocked doors, and usually it wouldn't be the man of the house, and sometimes you get some cute girl in a bikini answering the door, and I'm like, hey, how did you make money to like buy this incredible house that's overlooking all of San Diego? And she's just like, come back later or whatever. Like it was just weird, but I kept doing it. I kept at it. And my takeaway was it was almost 80% real estate. Like they all had they flipped homes. They got into commercial real estate. They had a strip mall. And a lot of them were international people in real estate, owning condos, apartment buildings. And so I did learn that lesson that real estate was something where, because of the commissions and because you could make this percentage, or if once you get that passive income, you turn that into another one, you start leveraging banks. What have you noticed in having your portfolio of wealthy clients? Like 70% are come from real estate, 30% is tech. Like, can you give us an idea? I think people are interested in that kind of stuff.
One, the benefit of real estate is obvious. One, you can use leverage.
Yeah.
You could put, think of a simple example. You can put $100,000 down and then tie up a $1 million asset. So there's value in that.
Okay.
I'd say number two is real estate is very tax friendly. Both the income you receive and your ability to keep rolling it from property to property without paying taxes on it. So that compounding of your principal. I think those are two really important aspects of real estate on why people over the years have made a lot of money. But I'd also challenge you that says, well, where were you knocking on those doors? Oh, it was California. California is one of the best real estate markets.
It's just
in the
gone now.
world.
Historically.
And it's by the
Right.
beach, right? So I should.
Is it still one of the best markets? I mean, that's the other thing is, as somebody that's coming into looking to invest in properties, it's hard to know, like, is the market good for this right now? Is it not good for this right now?
It depends if you're.
It seems very volatile.
If a place is overbuilt, yes, so you have to look at the supply, and then you have to look at the demand. Are people moving here? And back to what we talked about earlier, are they choosing to rent or are they choosing
Right.
to buy? Eventually that will shift, but just because real estate has been successful doesn't mean it always will in certain areas. You still always have to think of those other variables, and it goes back to the old adage of real estate: location, location, location.
Yeah.
I would never bet against beachfront property.
Yeah.
I think it's always going to go up. They can't make more of it. So
Lakefront too, to a certain point. I mean, as you get more to the middle of America.
it depends where. It
probably
has to
less.
be a desirable place that people actually want to live.
If it's out in the middle of nowhere, yeah.
But I love the fact that you were doing that at a young age. In today's world, people would be looking at their Ring cameras and probably wouldn't get any.
Calling the
Posting
cops.
them on
Yeah.
social.
Right.
What is this weird kid doing?
Exactly.
Cops.
I think that's one of the changes we've seen that's hard to duplicate. I think it's a
Yeah.
great idea.
What do you see other than real estate?
A lot of business owners, a lot of our biggest clients, the things that they've sold, they're not as sexy as
Do
you
they have
think
to be
they
as
are.
big as we think too? Like when you say business owners, do they have to be as big, like huge
Yeah,
corporations?
I mean, you've seen it. You can make a good living employing 10 or 20 people, and then ultimately having a liquidity event at the end, create a business that you can ultimately sell so you don't have to work there forever. I mean, that's where a lot of value is created. But a lot of unique businesses that are just adding value within, certain supply chains.
Yeah. What is your opinion on that? Buying small businesses, laundromats. That's a big social media thing.
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't. Luckily, I've always been in a position where I've had my own washing machines and things like that in the house. I've never had to go outside to do that. So I would think if you're doing that, you're picking an economically sensitive area. So I don't have any advice on that.
What's your advice for people? It's been how many years since 2008, right? And it's always in the back of people's mind. There's going to be another black swan event where we can't predict it, or maybe it's just the market tanks again. What do you tell people, just general advice in terms of safety net, how to think about, that inevitable downward slope? Because we've been riding this for a long time.
When you're at record levels, that's a common question people ask. But interestingly enough, if you look back at history, and I think it's really important to be a good investor to look at history, when the market is at record highs, it tends to continue going higher. There are always bubbles, but a bubble doesn't always mean every asset is at a bubble. There are certain assets that might be excessively
Cars,
expensive
houses, right? Yeah.
that you have to be careful of. But if you look at the overall economy, everything is not trading at a bubble. There's one sector, AI related, that is a little bit expensive. But historically, over the last couple of years, it has been delivering. So I think the thing I would always remind people is, diversify, so that if one investment goes down, you've got the others that are potentially holding on. Don't invest every dollar that you have. Keep some liquidity for that rainy day or for purchases you're going to need in the next couple of years. And then I'd say the third thing about that is the market does go down. You got to look at history. Every 10 years, it does have a meaningful correction. And the worst thing you could do is sell or panic and make a bad decision when prices are at a time where you should be buying instead of selling. So if you go into your homework in advance and say, I understand it could go down, and when that happens and it's very emotional, just understand you should potentially be looking at that opportunity differently and not panicking out. More about patience.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice. Would you tell anyone that has a wealth advisor that they feel pressure to have all their money with them, to run, they should be wary of that? Because one thing I've respected and loved about our relationship is that all my money's not with you, and that I can come to you and not feel like if I tell you about other money I want to put somewhere else, that you're just going to be like, you're an idiot if you don't give it to me, right? And that's probably a common concern people have, right? If I disclose this, well, then of course he's going to say, I am the best person to give that money to. So how do you handle that?
I think you have to put your ego aside and say what's best for the client. And there are different reasons to diversify firms. In some cases, people think it's about safety. In some cases, that's true. In other cases, it's not. Many big firms are safe, and you could have all your assets there and be okay. But then there are situations where if there is an investment that firm doesn't offer, it makes sense to look elsewhere to potentially get it. So rather than saying, I'm going to pick this firm and that firm for random reasons, look at it and say, what does that firm offer that this one doesn't? And how can I have that complement my situation rather than compete?
Yeah. What advice do you give people about, having a safety net and kind of building that in connection to investing?
No brainer. You need to.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to make sure you have that. Based on where you are in life will determine how much you should have in that safety net. But I think that's essential. I think that's the first bucket you should fill before you move on to other longer term things.
And what are we talking? 1 year, 2 years, a couple months?
It depends how predictable your income is.
Okay.
If your income is extremely predictable, I think you need less. Maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's the ability to borrow that can fill that short term need. If your job is very unpredictable, maybe it's 5 years. Think of it as how long would it take me to get a new job?
Yeah.
Or wait for my investment to recover. So I'd say somewhere between 6 months and 5 years, depending on your situation.
Okay.
What books do you recommend to people? I went on an absolute bender in my late 30s and just said, I'm going to finally pull back the curtain and try to understand finance, because it was all quantum physics to me. So I read Total Money Makeover, Tony Robbins, real generic, but it was a nice kind of comprehensive look at it. A random walk down Wall Street, The Richest Man in Babylon. I just started reading all of the kind of quintessential finance books, right? More recently, Die with Zero. That's one that's kind of popular, where this idea of more like, no, you should enjoy your money, a little bit more holistic, like you try to help people understand, which I love. What books do you recommend to people? What podcasts do you recommend to people if they want to start self-educating and then maybe find their way to someone like you?
I would say my two favorite books that I've reread and still find value on. I'd say the first one is called The Psychology of Money.
Right? Morgan House.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Some great lessons. And the second one is a little bit more in depth. It's by Ray Dalio. It's called Principles.
That's heavy. I made it halfway through.
Yeah, I love it. I've actually read it twice.
It's got a lot of dust on it. It's thick, but it's great. It's just psychology of money is smaller.
And then I'd say the third one and this is one that I actually try to read a page a day. It's called The Daily Dad.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
Yep, I do that.
It just keeps me focused on probably one of my most important things is being a dad.
Your daughters. And you have how many?
3 daughters.
And
Girl dad.
I recommend people all the time, to follow The Daily Dad. Just keeps you centered. It's like a daily scripture kind of a thing, where it just reminds you you're going to be really sad when you don't have a room to clean up and there's not a big mess in the kitchen, and it just continually reminds you, like, this is why you work hard. This is why you make money. These moments matter more than anything else you're worried about, and is, keeping Ashton up at night and the stress of having multiple offices and running a big law firm. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Those are great recommendations.
As we talked about before we were on camera, always thinking about the next chapter ahead, I think is really important. And I think as a parent, I think it's easier to manage the relationship with your kids when they're in the house, and then when they leave the house. And in my case, they're all in Florida. How do you adjust and adapt to that next phase and still stay connected, still offer advice and mentorship and guidance and love, even though you're 3,000 miles away? And I think reading books like that can help you at least focus on it and think about
Be
it.
intentional.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do the second to last question. Ash gets to ask the very last one.
Oh, geez, okay.
How do you define success?
I think it goes back to what we talked about before, meaningful work and meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Well put.
Having all those. So we ask all of our guests, it's attorneys on accident, because we never thought that we'd be here, but we kind of did. And so we want to ask, was being a private wealth advisor an accident? Is that something that you fell into? How did you get where you are right now?
Goes back to having a mentor when I was young. When I was trying to think of what major to take in college, my brother-in-law had said, pick something hard. And, so I looked at finance. For many people, that was hard. So I started in that direction and then explored real estate, the finance world, banking, and many of those things. And, I found a passion in the finance world. And a lot of it had to do with the relationships that you're building, as well as the ability to, help make people money.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much. I got a ton out of this. I know our listeners are going to get a ton out of it. Rick, really good nuggets. Thank you for being smart and working so hard to where you could come on and help other people. But no, it's a privilege.
Honor.
Yeah, and
thanks for thinking of me.
You never gatekeep, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and we'll have to have you back on when you become like the de facto financial advisor for all the Vegas celebs. And
I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a nice book. We can't talk about that. But thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.